I'm assembling this artist paint box kit, and it includes some accessories you can replicate at home even if you don't have the kit. The kit comes with really clear instructions and nice quality printouts to put on our accessories, so let's get started. We'll start by forming the box, and I'm cutting the tiny tabs that hold the cherry pieces onto the laser cut sheet and sorting them into A, B, and C piles. The lid is made of 5 pieces, which are the 4 side pieces and the top. Starting with an end piece, I'm applying white glue with a precision applicator bottle. This bottle was given to me, but you can find them on Amazon, and you can also use wood glue instead. I wipe off excess glue as I go. I added the piece on the other side, and I'm adding the 2 long pieces last. This kit is very well engineered, and the pieces fit together perfectly. It's not like the vintage dollhouse kits where nothing fits and it drives you nuts. With the lid assembled, we'll assemble the main box next. The main box has 6 pieces, and this is the middle piece. This is where the dividers sit on top so we can place the accessories. The side pieces have holes that correspond to the middle piece, so it's really easy to align them. There are very tiny tabs that go into holes on the bottom piece, so you need to make sure they're pointing down on each side. The end pieces are floppy at first, but the long side pieces will straighten them out and keep them square. To attach the sides of the box, I used a small amount of glue in these 6 notches and a small bead of glue across the front of the middle piece. This side piece is the front of the box, and it has a hole at the bottom of it for the drawer. I attached the back by running some glue and popping it into place. These are the tiny tabs I mentioned that go into holes on the bottom. I used glue along the entire underside. Next, I'm assembling the drawer. The drawer is really simple to assemble, and I don't think there's any way you could do this the wrong way. I started by attaching an end piece and added glue to the tabs and along the bottom for the side piece. I added the other long side piece and finished by capping off the end. The drawer comes with a 5th piece, which is the drawer front, and I simply glued that in place. I glued mine so the drawer front would be flush with the bottom of the drawer. With the 3 main pieces of the box constructed, it's time to add the dividers. The kit comes with 2 rectangles, which will eventually become cans of paint thinner, but they also double as spacers. I added the 2 rectangles to the top of the box and glued the appropriate piece underneath them. The 3 divider pieces are different lengths, so they're really easy to identify. After I glued the shortest piece in, I removed the spacers so they won't get glued in place. To attach the longest piece, I added glue to the bottom and sides, inserted it at an angle, and then straightened it out. I checked the drawer and it doesn't slide all the way in, so I sanded the bottom and the sides until it fit nicely. I sanded the drawer front to remove the very clean square lines left by the laser cutter and make it look more natural. Then sand the lid and the base of the box to make sure the sides are flush. Now I'm testing my stain technique on a scrap piece in case it warps the wood. I painted on my acrylic paint and used a paper towel to wipe it away while it was still wet. Then let it dry and see if it warps. I started with the inside of the divider trays by adding some paint and using a Q-tip to wipe it away. I slightly dampened the Q-tip since I'm working in a tight space and I can't use a dry paper towel. I'm showing this technique instead of the watered down paint technique to give you an alternative, but I'm sure the watered down paint would work as stain because this piece is nicely glued together and probably wouldn't warp. I filmed myself sanding the back, but I forgot to sand the rest of it, so there are some spots where the glue resisted the stain. You can seal the box, but I left it unsealed so it looks older. With the box construction complete, it's time to make the accessories that go inside. The kit comes with skinny toothpicks and regular ones, and we'll start with the skinny toothpick. I made a mark at 1 1/4 inches and another mark about 1/8 of an inch away from that. You can paint, but I used my Sharpie to make it simpler, and I colored to the second line I created. You can still see the spot where I marked it at 1 1/4 inches. I leave that unpainted. I painted 3 of these and left one of them longer for variation. Then I used my pliers to cut them at the mark I made. I used some flat pliers to pinch the end, and it makes it look like bristles on a paintbrush. I cut a very thin strip of the aluminum foil that's included in the kit, added some glue, and glued it around the bristles of the paintbrush. I covered the transition between the plain bristles and the painted handle. You can make more of these, but I made 3. I used another skinny toothpick and colored the end of it with my graphite pencil. I painted with yellow ochre, leaving a wooden spot at the end like you'll see on a pencil that's been sharpened. Leave a little extra to account for a little splintering that happens, and then sand in one direction to shorten it. I dipped the end of the pencil into some pink paint to make an eraser. Then I removed a little bit of the excess paint very carefully on a paper towel. I finished with aluminum foil and the graphite faded, so I dipped it in black paint. To make the paint tubes, I marked a regular toothpick at 1/4 inch and glued aluminum foil around it, leaving some overhang. I cut my strip of foil about 1/2 inch wide. I used tacky glue for this. I trimmed the foil so the seam is on the side of the paint tube. Then I used some tweezers to crimp the end and curl it up. The kit includes a variety of printed labels to choose from. I centered the graphic on the front of the tube. Then I turned it around, trimmed the excess, and folded the plain side first. I finished by folding over the side with the barcode. Then I attached the glass seed beads included in the kit with some tacky glue. Making the paint tubes is finicky because of the wet glue and aluminum foil, and the paper labels are quite thick. I swapped out the aluminum foil for adhesive-backed aluminum tape to make the rest of the tubes. Next, I'm making the bottle of paint thinner, and I'm using my fingernail to smooth my aluminum tape. The kit includes the aluminum foil, but I think this stuff is a lot easier to work with. I got mine for a few dollars from a hardware store. I centered the block in the square I cut and folded the sides. I folded in the end, sort of like a present, and then I used a tool to flatten out the seam and cut off the excess. I really like the durability of this aluminum tape and how much it looks like real metal. I use it in a lot of projects. I added some Scotch tape to the paint thinner labels so they'll be shinier, cut it out, and used tacky glue to glue it to the front of the bottle. Finished it off with a seed bead. Next, I'm making the small bottle of Holland Oil by cutting out the label, gluing it around the bead that's included, and topping it with a glass seed bead. It didn't fit beside the pencils, so I crammed it in with the paintbrushes. I sanded the edges of the paint palette so it won't look laser cut. Then I stained the wood with yellow ochre. I want the palette to look used, so I add small smears of paint, and I added some in the box as well. To finish the box, I taped it tightly shut so I can attach the brown ribbon that's included on the back to act as hinges. The kit doesn't instruct on how to do this, but I cut a small piece slightly bigger than the back and attached it with Fabri-Tac. You could also use tacky glue. The kit also includes white ribbon for holding the paint palette, and I used Fabri-Tac for this as well. You want to make sure you don't leave too much space or the paint palette will just flop out, so test it before the glue dries. The kit includes an instructional magazine for painting flowers, so I cut this out and glued it shut and added it to the drawer. Off camera, I assembled the second paint thinner can and added that to the drawer as well. I used museum wax so it'll hold the paint tubes, but I don't have to commit to gluing them in place. This kit took me about 2 hours to complete, and I would consider it a beginner kit. Thank you for watching, and make sure you check out my other videos.